Good evening, you are watching ReNEWS in English. I am Sona Tumanyan. Let's start with Armenia's economy numbers. The Minister of Economy has published data on the country's economic growth and development. If in the first quarter of this year, GDP grew by 5.1%, then in the second quarter, the growth was 5.9%, Evocabank wrote on his Facebook page. The ministry recalled that at the end of last year, when the budget for 2024 was being adopted, a GDP growth of 5.1% was forecasted in the draft. Papan also announced that in the first 7 months of 2024, exports from Armenia to the EAEU amounted to $1,788 million. This is $42 million or 2.4% more than the figure for the same period last year. Papan emphasized that these results demonstrate the stable development of the economy. The minister also responded to speculation about the reduction in gold exports. According to Papoyan's commentary, that process was not providing any real economic results and moreover was creating risks for the state and the business environment. By the way, members of the National Security and Foreign Policy Commission of the Islamic Parliament of Iran visited the Norduz checkpoint on the border with Armenia on Tuesday. According to an Iranian news agency, during the visit, the parliament members spoke with travelers and learned about the existing problems. According to the Iranian officials, about 2,000 passengers and 400 to 450 trucks cross the Armenian-Iranian border daily, and during holidays, the number of passengers reaches 7,000 to 8,000. Additionally, about 1 million tons of transit goods pass through this checkpoint annually, and its capacity has significantly increased. The Commission members emphasized the need to develop the infrastructure and urged for improvements to the checkpoint. The Iranian visit to Armenia has concluded, but there is a need to review yesterday's news summary. At the Armenia-Iran Business Forum attended by Prime Minister Pashinyan and Iranian President Pezeshkian, discussions centered on deepening bilateral economic relations and increasing the volume of trade. Pashinyan noted that Armenia aims to increase the trade volume to at least $1 billion and then in the next phase to $3 billion. Iranian President Pezeshkian in turn emphasized that the $3 billion figure is realistic and depends entirely on business people and representatives of the industry. He assured that both countries are ready to create the conditions that will encourage investment and joint production. Before turning to the other details of Masoud Pezeshkian's visit, let's hear the analyst's conclusions.
According to experts, Masoud Pezeshkian's visit to Armenia was also a message to countries outside the region. It was primarily aimed at the development of bilateral relations from which Armenia can benefit, emphasizes Iranologist Diana Gazaryan. She also states that the Republic of Armenia's consistently good relations with its neighboring country speak to the high level of Armenian-Iranian ties.
Since Armenia's independence, relations between Armenia and Iran have recorded a number of successes, and during these 30 years of relations, no misunderstandings or similar incidents have been recorded in Armenia-Iran bilateral ties. And recently, we can note that official visits, bilateral visits, and reciprocal visits have intensified, which testifies to the development of these diplomatic relations.
The so-called Zangezur corridor, which has caused heated discussions in Iran, as well as the Armenian-Azerbaijani meeting in Washington that resulted in the announcement of the Trump Highway, were on Pezeshkian's agenda for the visit, according to analysts. His goal was to ascertain the seriousness of potential threats.
First, I want to note that this is President Masoud Pezeshkian's first official visit to Armenia since taking office. And although the Iranian press is circulating two main goals related to this visit, I want to highlight as the primary key objective the creation of a platform to discuss the agreement signed between Yerevan and Baku at the White House, as Iran has serious concerns about this agreement. This is due to concerns that an American presence in the Sihanouk province is a serious threat to Iran, which implies an active military as well as intelligence presence in our region.
According to the Iranologist, one of the goals of Pezeshkian's visit is to demonstrate that Iran has strong positions in the region that it wants to strengthen, which is shown through new opportunities for cooperation in the economic, diplomatic, cultural, and scientific spheres. At the same time, experts see a need for vigilance and a thorough calculation of the benefits and risks.
There is a simple truth. If Iran cannot ensure matters related to Armenia's security, firstly, it has no obligation, and secondly, it is currently unable to continue maintain and also solve its own security problems, then Iran must come to terms with it. I believe that in Armenia, first and foremost, we must further clarify a clear policy that relations with the West, the collective West, meaning the United States, the European Union, European countries, should not come at the expense of Russia and Iran. Yes, we have the circumstance of being neighbors with Iran, we have mutual interests, but there is also a simple truth that Iran does not ensure our security-related issues, and the countries that have made critical statements regarding these recent processes also do not provide it. If they don't provide it, they must come to terms with it.
According to experts, although Iran currently lacks the power to counterbalance extra-regional forces, it is trying to establish stable and good relations with the countries of the region.
Iran would naturally want to assume such a role in the region, but that requires more time and more resources to be invested in the region. But overall, we can say that Iran is making efforts to strengthen its position and have a stable footing in the region. And this is evident specifically in Armenia through the signing of a number of agreements, economic cooperation contracts, and the aspiration to secure its stable place in the region.
Against the backdrop of recent events, where Iran is not seen as a security guarantor for Armenia, Tehran is trying to strengthen its influence in the region through other economic and diplomatic levers. Discussions around increasing trade turnover and implementing energy and transport projects between the two countries aim to show that Tehran's presence is based on a mutually beneficial partnership.
The series of official visits also included a meeting between the presidents of Iran and Armenia. The president of the Republic, Vahagan Khachaturian, hosted the president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, who was in Armenia for an official visit. Opportunities for deepening cooperation in the political, economic, and cultural spheres were discussed. The parties noted the work carried out by Iranian companies on the North-South corridor as a successful example of partnership. The meeting also addressed regional developments and Armenia's Crossroads of Peace initiative. The Iranian president's first official visit is also being discussed in the Iranian media. The coverage from the Iranian side is in the following report.
A new bridge will be built on the Armenia-Iran border. Announcing this, Prime Minister Pashinyan stressed that Armenia has set a strategic benchmark to drastically increase the volume of bilateral trade with Iran, bringing it first to $1 and then to $3 billion.
Considering the daily growing volume of transportation between our countries, we have reached an agreement to build a second bridge on the Armenia-Iran border.
Iranian media reports that the Iraqs and the so-called Zengezur corridors are at the center of the country's authorities' attention. The visit of the National Security Commission to the border town of Julfa and the president's visit to Armenia are being carried out with the aim of discussing issues related to these routes and strengthening regional relations. The Iranian officials stressed the need to eliminate obstacles to tourism between the two countries.
It was decided to take measures to facilitate travel by car, especially for the pilgrims to the St. Thaddeus Monastery near Hoi, who visit every year. I was there recently, and there were about 5,000 people.
The deep cultural and historical ties between Armenia and Iran have a history of thousands of years, rooted in a common geographical location and mutual cultural interaction, reports Iranian television, emphasizing that new initiatives are needed to strengthen all of this.
Armenia's Minister of Education, Science, Culture and Sport will depart for Iran on September 5th, and in my opinion, a very blessed and wonderful event is that they will celebrate the 100th anniversary of their symphony orchestra in Shiraz, near Hoi, Persepolis. They are preparing to implement a magnificent program, and at the end of that program, the Armenians, out of love for Iraq, for Iran, and with the love they have for Iran, will sing the song Hey Iran against a beautiful backdrop.
The Iranian consul in Syunik also touched upon President Pezeshkian's visit, the importance of establishing friendly ties between people and strengthening relations in various sectors through new initiatives, emphasizing the vital significance of the enduring neighborliness of the two countries.
The border between Iran and Armenia has a history of thousands of years, and we consider it a bridge of friendship and solidarity. We have never had a problem on that border. The two countries have always had warm relations. Our historical ties cannot be denied. They are natural. It is impossible to create such ties artificially.
The consul added that the countries of the region will not benefit if outsiders interfere in their affairs. Therefore, Armenia's position is very important to them, time and will be studied in detail in their country.
In addition to Armenian and Iranian media, Pezeshkian himself spoke about the visit. The Iranian president wrote on X that the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran believes in preserving Armenia's sovereignty and territorial integrity and in the continuation of warm relations between the two countries. He noted that Tehran's concerns about the presence of third-party forces near the shared borders must be taken into account and thoroughly discussed. On sensitive regional issues, Iran continues to remain active and expects guarantees from Armenia, at least in the form of clarifications. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has stated that Armenia has assured Iran that it will never allow any threat to the Islamic Republic from its territory. Speaking to Mehr news agency, the diplomat noted that very serious and constructive negotiations took place between the two sides. Araghchi spoke about the clarifications provided by the Armenian side regarding the Washington meeting. Armenia has assured that it is aware of Iran's red lines and will always pay attention to them. Based on that assurance, Armenia will never allow any threat to Iran to emanate from its territory, Araghchi noted. From diplomats' remarks, it became clear that a decision has been made to sign a comprehensive strategic cooperation document between the two countries in the near future. Displaced persons from Artsakh applying for Armenian citizenship can now, in addition to the previously operating regional and Yerevan-based departments, also apply to mobile service offices. To make services more accessible to citizens, the service offices of the Ministry of Internal Affairs have been conducting mobile services for some time using specially equipped vehicles. The goal is to avoid queues and serve more citizens. To date, about 60 persons displaced from Artsakh have submitted applications for Armenian citizenship at these mobile service offices. Yesterday, a working visit by representatives of the human rights defender to military facilities in Syunik began. The defender's office reported that the visit is scheduled to include trips to military units, the military commissariat, and also military police departments. The defender's representatives will study issues related to the protection of servicemen's rights on the ground, assess their conditions, and discuss existing problems and their potential solutions. Fines are unavoidable if the declaration is not filed. The deadline for filling the declaration is approaching. They say this is a phase that international experience overcame long ago. What awaits us? According to the Prime Minister of Armenia, this is a tool for preventing corruption. Let's watch the report by Ani Hovanesyan.
There are only 2.5 months left to submit the annual income declaration. If citizens do not declare where and how much income they receive by November, they will be fined, initially 5,000 and then 10,000 drams. The amount of the fine will gradually increase with continued failure to submit. Months ago, the State Revenue Committee, SRC, announced that all tax-paying citizens must file declarations. That decision sparked quite heated discussions, but the debates subsided as quickly as they arose when it was announced that the declaration deadline was being extended by several months. Let's find out together where our citizens are in this process and whether they are aware of the delays.
The deadline is in November, so I'll file it in November. I logged in and looked at it last year, but I haven't this year. If something has changed, last year it was quite inaccessible and difficult for a regular user to navigate.
Informatics teacher Samval Poloyan says the system could have been more understandable for people.
A professional should know where they need to go. Instead, people enter a general area, get confused, and can't figure out which section they need to fill out. They should group the fields by profession or category so you could just go there directly and be done with it.
According to July data, only 8% of citizens have filed a declaration, meaning about 60,000 out of 700,000. This figure was provided to former Minister of Labor and Social Affairs Mesrop Erekelian by the SRC.
Only 9% of those working in state institutions have filed declarations. The situation is the same with other people. They are essentially rejecting this system. Let's say hypothetically you receive a transfer of 200,000 drams 100 times during the year and you don't declare that 20 million drams. But if someone makes a single transfer at 400,000 drams, they have to declare it.
According to Erekelian, our authorities have considered foreign experience, but not fully, because the SRC has always possessed most of the information on incomes anyway.
Once 1 million declarations are collected somewhere, what are 10, 20, or 100 SRC employees going to do with them? They've adopted the declaration system for many countries, but they haven't adopted the tax system that goes with it. What do many countries also do, as I mentioned, since the information is already there? They send the declaration to people, sometimes electronically or on on paper and say, confirm your income here. If you have something to add, then you add it. They could have even made the process like that for people.
We also have many weak links, says Eric Hillian. For example, most pensioners don't even have a smartphone.
First, starting next year, all citizens will have the obligation to file, including, for example, our 500,000 pensioners, 99% of whom probably only receive a pension. What is that person supposed to do? Take a paper and write that they receive a 32,000 dram pension. You, the SRC, can just open your records, see that the person receives a 32,000 dram pension, and be happy with that fact.
How is the SRC trying to simplify the declaration process? And doesn't this requirement violate people's right to privacy of personal data? We directed these questions that concern citizens to the agency.
The basic information is filled in automatically based on what the employer submits on behalf of the individual. The individual independently fills in only the information related to other sources of income. Access to this information at the SRC is restricted to a limited number of people.
By the way, according to the SRC, as of this moment, about 94,000 people have filed their declarations. About 500,000 still need to manage to file by November 1st. Ani Hovhannisyan, ReOpen Media.
The Armenian national team is a symbol of strength, unity, and responsibility. These are the words of the team's newly appointed coach. He assesses the upcoming first match against Portugal on September 6th as a serious test, but also as a great opportunity for analysis. Yaghshan Malikan notes that the team's foundation will be faith, dedication, and discipline. He considers the fans' dissatisfaction to be natural. He is convinced that with patience and unity, it will be possible to change the situation.
I have come to this moment consciously, knowing what competitors there are, but I am convinced that after playing with these teams, we will have more experience, a greater opportunity for analysis. It is going to be very difficult to do what I would like in a short period of time. We have good football players. My goal is to get the fighting team I envision from these football players.
Meanwhile, the so-called Russian-Azerbaijani warm relations continue to remain tense. Russia's Federal Security Service denied entry to a well-known Azerbaijani producer and turned him back at the border. Former Azerbaijani Foreign Minister Tawfiq Zulfugarov has stated that after its setbacks in Ukraine, the Kremlin is trying to create new enemy figures. According to him, in recent months, the main targets of Russian propaganda have become Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan. Previously, such attacks were mainly directed at the Baltic countries, NATO, and France. Zulfugarov is convinced that Russia will not dare to open a second front against Azerbaijan, but the propaganda pressure will continue to grow. According to him, the strong alliance between Azerbaijan and Turkey protects the country from any military threat. There is also news from a phone call. The U.S. Secretary of State and the Turkish Foreign Minister discussed the peace process between Armenia and Azerbaijan and some regional issues. The U.S. State Department reported that he and Hakan Fidan, while discussing the Russia-Ukraine negotiations, agreed on the need to end the war and stop the killings. They also discussed supporting peace in Syria and Iran's nuclear program. And let me add some details from international newsfeed. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has announced that Russian President Putin noted in a phone call with Trump that he will meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in the coming weeks. The Trump administration is cooperating with Russia and Ukraine to ensure this bilateral meeting takes place. Russian forces have struck several targets in Ukraine. In turn, Ukraine destroyed Russian ammunition depots. The Russian Ministry of Defense reported that its air defense systems shot down several missiles and 117 unmanned aerial vehicles. The Ukrainian Air Force reported that in one day it shot down 230 drones of various types, several Iskander and ballistic missiles and other cruise missiles. And the Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has confirmed the plan to capture Gaza City. The operation has been named Chariots of Gideon 2. I am Sona Tumanian. Stay informed with ReNews. Good night.